I'm Paul Challenger, and I'm standing in to facilitate the live show. And as we said last week, no one can replace Ross. So we have a new format, one of having a main feature presentation of new videos made by members of the group or affiliated groups, and with a top and a tail either side of it with news, etc. And also feedback on the live chat. Everyone is welcome to contribute a video, and in fact, we're asking for new work urgently. Angela or myself will act as liaison to publish them to the Britain's Hidden History YouTube site. Just message us by finding us on the BHH Facebook group under Members. Something's going to go wrong. It wouldn't be a BHH show without something going wrong. But I said last week that Arnie was going to do some short videos for us playing in the violin. And here he is, 14-year-old Arnie, doing really well learning to play the violin. And he's given me this one, Tree Forest Waltz. Enjoy. That was lovely, short and sweet. And he's really making great progress, isn't he? Now, as you know, we generally have technical issues running these live shows. And last week's show was no exception. In fact, I made some real bloopers right throughout the whole course of the show, so much so that I felt I did Marshall a disservice and said I would edit the video. I played it twice, basically. And I did. I edited the video. So this week, I now have to apologize to anyone who left a comment on the video of the live show, as I deleted it from the channel. So can I ask that you repeat the comment on the edited version? Thanks very much. And there's a couple of items to report in the news this week. Angie and the boys will be having a stall to sell Britain's Hidden History and Cymroglyphics books at the Griffin Community Centre, Porthcawl, and that's on the 1st of April 23 between 10:30 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. The community centre, if you didn't know, is located on the Treco Bay to Town Road, and it's at the town end by the roundabout, and that's near Beale's Fish and Chip Shop. And it's also by the park with the toilets, near the entrance to the Pleasure Beach Fairground. So it's down the road heading out towards Treco Bay from the town centre roundabout. It's the same place as last time for anyone who visited then, and maybe if you can attend and wish to meet up with other members of the BHH Facebook group page could be used to coordinate a meetup. Don't forget, the books and other merchandise are also for sale on the Cymroglyphics website. That's www.cymroglyphics. And thankfully, Angie has help with the book sales from 2 young men who work the website. But we can all help by buying a book or two. So Bob Morgan has given me a couple of news items which he has found, but which may be by now a little out of date. But they still may be of interest to someone researching on the particular subject. And here's one such item.
We go on to this one here now, and Ross would really have been annoyed by this one. This is up on Hadrian's Wall at Houstead's, the Houstead's Roman fort. Ross and I and his family, we went up there and went up to Houstead's fort and walked along the wall at Hadrian's Wall when we went up for Alan Wilson's 90th birthday last year, about August, I think it was, from memory now. When we went up there, and this art installation wasn't there. I mean, the art installation is this great big huge. It's a representation of the Roman fort that would have been there. Obviously, the Roman fort would have been in stone, not in the multicolour thing. And this is actually an artwork. It's an art installation by this Morag Myerscough, and entitled "The Future Belongs to What Was as Much as What Is." And when you actually look at this art installation, there's the artists. It's stuck up on the hill fort in position of where the gatehouse would have been, and it did a number of things. It was only in place from something like September. It was only in place for a couple of months, September and October, I think, or it could have been late August to October. It certainly wasn't there when we were up there for Alan's birthday. And this one was flagged up to me by my brother, who went up to Houstead's after I did. He went up in September, and it was there in late September. And it really annoyed him because you could see this brightly garish thing on the hillside for miles around. And I said to him, well, yeah, the art installation has done one thing. It would show how dominating then in the landscape the actual Roman fort would have been. I take the fact that the Roman fort wouldn't have been in bright yellows and reds and things like that and look as garish in the landscape. But what it's done is it's highlighted that.
How would they know? Sorry, I was going to say, how would they know how tall it was then?
Oh, it's the normal kind of thing. It's they've done they've rebuilt Vindolanda, haven't they? They're obviously working from the foundation footprint and the wall footprint, so they've got an idea how it's laid out and things like that. But ultimately, they don't know exactly how it would have looked. So they're looking at, presumably they're looking at other Roman forts around within the Roman Empire, and then putting it all together to come up with a representation. But we can never know whether it's an accurate representation. But it would probably be. It would most definitely have been this size, I would think, and it would have been this dominant in the landscape. Wow. But when you look at this art installation, basically what it is a series of scaffolding poles with plywood sheeting, and you could actually get I never saw it, but people who told me have been up there. You could actually they had the stairway up there, so you would get up there onto a viewing platform, so you could see out onto the landscape as if you were in the Roman fort itself. Wow. So, but I think. You can see again, in the landscape, how it would dominate on the skyline. That's quite good. But the thing that annoys me, and I'm sure it would have really annoyed Ross, was right. They spent. This is the. I think this is English Heritage National Trust, isn't it? I think.
I thought it said English Heritage.
Yeah. And they've almost spent a large amount of money for this temporary art installation because it went up. It was there for, I think it was there for a maximum of 3 months, and it came down.
Why not spend the money on something?
Yeah, no, I'm going to say what would annoy Ross, what annoys me, and what would annoy Ross is for the same amount of money, we could have funded a geophysical survey of 3 or 4 of our sites that we're interested in.
Yeah.
Because I bet, that the hire scaffolding itself, I know, is not cheap. I know from personal experience. Yeah, hiring
Definitely
scaffolding
isn't cheap.
is not cheap. So if you're hiring it for 3 months, there's a huge cost in that. They've got to pay for the artists. They've got to pay for all the art materials in order to do it, and the plywood for the panels. I've been trying to find out exactly how much it would cost, but I haven't been able to find anywhere in any of the press how much it cost. But I'm certain for the same amount of money, we could have funded 3 or 4 geophys surveys of sites of interest to us.
Yeah.
And to my mind, that is a better use of the money than putting up a temporary artist installation.
Yeah, but if they put it up near a city like York, at least thousands of people would have seen it.
Yeah, it was obviously done in order to attract tourists, and to boost and kickstart the tourist industry again after COVID, I suspect. But anyway, it's come and gone. So if you didn't get to see it, it's no longer there. And I for one, I think thankful it's not, because it was a bit, looking at the photos, it was a bit bright and too garish. And again, when you look at it, I'm not convinced how much art actually goes into it. But you made the scaffolding into the shape of what you presume the Roman fort to look like. Okay, that's pretty good. But the all of the boards and the paint and the images on it, what really has that got to do with Roman? What's it got to do with history or anything like that? It just seems, I don't know.
That's a quick ending. Got me out there, Bob. We've got a series of those, but we can't put them all out in one go because there's 4 or 5 separate little items of news, but they're all going to be very, very interesting, and they'll all be shown here and there as the weeks go on. So Bob Morgan has been with Britain's Hidden History right from the very beginning, along with Ross and others. And Bob has suggested that we all might like to know what it was like to actually undertake a field visit with Ross and other BHH supporters. So he has compiled a series of personal photographs to show to us and offer his own memories of such site visits. And know we're going to enjoy this presentation immensely. Well, hello. Well, today I'm speaking with Bob, looking at some of Bob's and the Britain's Hidden History group site visits. Over to you, Bob.
Yes, what I thought we do very quickly is to go through some of the site visits we've done over the last 4 or 5 years, because a lot of the Britain's Hidden History members don't actually get to go out on the site visits, or didn't have the opportunity to join Ross on some of the site visits. And whereas all the site visits that Ross went on ultimately end up and turned into Sunday shows, I just thought it would be interesting to quickly run through some of the photographs I've taken of the site visits whilst they're in progress. A lot of it actually saw photographs of Ross whilst he's filming, or the other members whilst we're doing things on site, just to give so that the other members who haven't been on site visits can get a feel for the flavour of what we actually do when we get out on site.
Well, sounds marvelous.
And also, in a way, it's also another reminder of Ross.
A homage to Ross.
The tremendous character he was, because the site visits were what it was all about. And as we go through the site visits, I'll tell you some of the things about the site visits, because there were a couple of things that you could always guarantee on Ross to do on a site visit.
I hope you're not got the one with the lake underneath the Regos Mountain. You can keep that one for another time.
Yeah, keep that. Yeah, no, that's a program in itself, I think.
That's right.
Oh, this was one of the very early site visits I went on. This was a site visit to Mynydd Dinas above Port Talbot, and the reason we went up there was they recently clear felled some of the trees up there, and Ross wanted to get up there to see, because of the name Mynydd Dinas implies that there was some kind of settlement up on top of the hill. And with all the trees there, you couldn't see anything. Now that the trees were down, Ross was hoping that we could discern where the settlement was, or if there was a settlement there, or see what we could find. But one of the other things up on top of Mynydd Dinas is this burial mound. It's one of these, like, they're like penny burial mounds. They're quite low, perhaps a meter high, but like sort of 10, 12, 20 meters in diameter. It's like basically like a penny on the ground. So they're not very high. And again, with the trees around it, the last time I went up there looking for this, I couldn't find it because it was just full of conifer trees. I couldn't find it at all. But when we got up there, one of the annoying things was to find out that on top of this burial mound, the first thing that's plonked there now is a trig point. And the trig point is interesting as well because, and this really annoyed us when we got up there, because it's not on the actual highest part of the hill. About six.
Is that vandalism then? Is that on purpose?
Well, official vandalism or so.
Yeah.
But we know it's not on the highest part of the hill because about 6 months before we went up to do the site visit, you have these Munro baggers who go up and they climb all these hills of specific heights. And one of the things is that you've got the normal Munros, which are the high hills normally in Scotland, and they climb up the top of them and they bag all the high spots and go Munro bagging, and there's hundreds that you can do, and people spend a lifetime climbing the hills to log them all. But this is what they term a Marilyn. And I think a Marilyn is something that's over 1,000 feet. Really? And so this was just on that borderline. It's always been assumed to be a Marilyn. So anyway, they sent a survey team out of the people who were into the Munro bagging game. They all went out there one day with GPS and measuring equipment to confirm that this was a Marilyn. So they got on top of the hill, and they went for the same reason we did. The trees are gone. So they could get up there and they can move around the top of the hill. And they actually found out the highest spot is about sort of 50 meters to the southwest of where this trig point is. And knowing that really annoyed us. It was, it's adding insult to injury. Not only have they put a trig point on the burial mound, it's also not the highest point of the hill. So
yeah, imagine him being aggrieved about that.
Yeah, no, he was very aggrieved about it. Yeah, there he is, looking
nice photo.
Yeah, we got some good ones. And again, this is the kind of thing that we're doing. We got Rob, we've got Steve, Rob Pierce, Ross, Tim, and Rachel. Is it? I think it is. And so Rob has got his book about what we're looking at and things like that, and we're looking at it, and Ross is filming it all. Here's where you can have the fun part of the trip. We're actually coming down a very steep slope, and because of the long grass, what we can't see is that there's a great huge drop. You go down what's a gentle incline, then all of a sudden it drops by about a meter. And I was down first, and I came down, and I ended up on my backside. So everyone else come down. So Ross is here helping everyone else come down as we come down off the top of the.
Well, it's not exactly easy to get over a barbed wire fence, is it?
No. But this is the kind of thing we have to do on the trip in order to get to the places where we want to look at. And again, what Ross doing, part of his show. Again, big smile on his face, always a smile. This is in.
I saw the same woods myself with Richard Davis. Yeah.
Yeah, Richard Davis.
Green Meadow Woods or some other name.
Yeah, we're doing that. And again, a very interesting site. Richard Davis has done, they've done some archaeological work on it, and to find all of these walls and things that are there, which presumably relate to the nearby monastery. But again, this is the kind of thing. When we go on-site visits, it's always more questions than answers. So on this particular one here, we seem to be having some.
Disagree.
Some issues.
Well, they photographs, Bob. Absolutely
yeah,
stunning quality.
There are some good ones there.
Yeah.
This is the one that we always end up going to for obvious reasons. Tim taking photographs there. This is on top of another burial mound up on top of the hill there, but it's not Tuin Caradog, but it's the burial mound next to it. Then we got David there with his drone, flying his drone. Yeah, I haven't got any other photographs of David other than looking into his things whilst his drone's flying. Man, it's always too much for Ross. He just can't get his head around it, so he's always got to have a lie down. This is at Carmelin or Camelot.
Yeah,
where we got Graham, our psychic archaeologist, doing his thing up on top of Camelot, attracting a flock of sheep into the bargain. They were quite intrigued as to what he was doing.
Yeah.
And again, then sort of Ross doing interviews with Graham and Julian. And then we're at Lantony. Again, we were out there looking for, it's supposed to be an altar, which was initially made by Jesus and been wrapped in lead by St. David.
Yeah. I read your report in the back of, which one is it in? Which book is it in?
It's in I think it's in the Jesus Burial. It's in one of them anyway.
Well, it probably is because it's connected with the Jesus story. Yeah, and well worth reading. Anybody who can get hold of your copy there.
Yeah.
Your summary of what's at Lantony.
But again, Lantony goes back, so initially St. David's was supposed to have a hermitage cell there, which then ultimately turned into a small church, which ultimately turned into what's said today the Lantony Priory or the Lantony Abbey. But we were looking at waterways there because there's an interesting the drainage on here is quite interesting because it comes down from the mountain and there's a drain that actually goes underneath Lantony, the priory itself, and comes out and goes into the brook down, which is further down the hill. We were investigating that at the time, and Ross was looking for potential burial places for this supposed altar encased in lead. And one of the places he was looking at, this is an old fish pond.
Oh, yeah.
Which was associated with the abbey and the monastery that was there. And one of the things Ross was considering was, well, hang on a minute, if you drain the fish pond and put your it would be a great place to bury anything. You bury it under the fish pond and then cover it over again and then put water back into it and nobody can find it. So we had Graham and people were dowsing this area here. We actually had a metal detector. We got some metal detector hit, which was up in this corner up here where.
All right.
They got quite a big, sizable hit on with the metal detector. The problem we got on this is again owned by the I think it's National Trust own it. So you're never going to get permission to dig it up.
But what you want to do is get some 1960s builders on the case.
Yeah.
They'll find buried lead anywhere.
No. Well,
tops of pyramids, you name it, they'll find it.
You name it, we find it. This is the when we went in search of the Jesus burial site that Wilson and Blackett have described in their book. That was a really good day, really interesting thing. The site is quite interesting because initially we were led to believe by Wilson Blackett's book that the burial site for him would be on Dinas Island.
Mhm.
And that makes, to us, that made quite a lot of sense because it's quite a spectacular location.
Yeah.
And also, if you're buried out on Dinas Island and you've got a tomb out on there, it's seen from both the land and from the sea. So if anyone was trying to dig into or tamper with the tomb, it would be visible for miles around. This site now is one which they now believe to be, Wilson Blackett now believe to be the site where Jesus is buried, but it's just basically a nondescript hilltop in middle Wales. And when we went up to look at it, it was distinctly underwhelming. But we did find things on there which lead us to believe there's more to it than what we're seeing. We're just the location. And again, so we were planning another trip up there this year to go and investigate further because there are some old Bronze Age tombs up there. And there's also some other burial mounds which aren't scheduled monuments, but distinctly look like burial mounds. And one or two of them have actually got sumps associated with them, like Tunigo.
Yeah.
So we want to go back up there again and revisit it because Wilson and Blackett in their books, although the location of the hilltop you can find by following their descriptions, they didn't go any further to actually say the tomb is actually, you're on the right hill. But it's located here. They didn't give a precise location for it, other than we haven't been able to get any further than the hilltop. But there are certain things up on this hill which lead us to believe that there is, if it's not Jesus, there is an important burial up on the hill. And it's quite bizarre as well because I say it's quite a low hill and it's surrounded by sort of higher hilltops. But when you're up on top of this hill, you've got this fantastic view out towards, you can see Ireland on a clear day.
Wow.
On one way, and if you look the other way, you can see the Brecon Beacons and things like that. So you do have extensive views, despite the fact that there are higher hills around you. So, and again, it was a really fun day because we all had to get into my Land Rover and get up to the top of this hill. So there were 6 of us in the Land Rover and Blaze the dog. So it was all quite cozy.
Well, the dog would have loved that, wouldn't he?
No, yeah, everyone loved it. It was a good day out.
And what was the name of the hill again?
No, you read the book.
Oh, read the book. Which book was that then?
That's the Jesus book. Yeah, where Jesus. Yeah.
Oh, all right, but what I read,
the clues are in there, which enable you to find the hilltop. But the actual gravesite itself, this is what we were looking for when we were there. We're now on top of the hill. And we're looking for the gravesite, So we got Tim's there, sort of doing some dowsing. We found some stones. We got our psychic archaeologist Graham there, and Julian. So and we were all looking around everywhere. But and here we go back again to Mynyddig. There's another visit there.
Yeah.
How Spade will dig. We're looking for Arthur's grave this time because again we know it's around. We know it's around Mynyddig and around the Pass of the Soldier, but we still haven't come to a definite location or conclusion as to where the gravesite actually is. And we have, at the moment, 3 prime candidates, and one of them is probably more prime than the others, so I don't quite know how you work that one. So, we haven't decided which of the 3 is the right location, but one of them we favour more than the other for, again, a variety of reasons.
I've heard of 2 places. I mean, Alan Wilson talks about like a walled-up cave entrance that he found behind a bush. But then, is it Monica or Marshall say that it wasn't the grave inside St. Peter's?
No. Originally, Wilson Blackett thought, if you go back to Arcturus Rex, they thought the grave was in St. Peter's. Subsequently to that book, and if you go to the Holy Grail, they've now moved on. They've moved from they no longer consider it to be in there. And the reason for that is because Alan was up there one day and he happened to be walking around in an area where he hadn't normally walked. And he just saw this, there was a pile of bushes, but there were some stones, and the sunlight had shone onto the stones, and was actually so attracted him to it. And when he got there, he found what he now believes to be a walled up cave. And when he checked the field names, it all tied together. So they've moved from Arthur being in the church to now Arthur being in a burial burial location near the pass of the soldier.
Right.
And this was again, we've been up there a number of times now, going around investigating. And every time we've gone up, we find another little bit more information, which is leading us to a more definite conclusion. And I was up there again, sort of only Tuesday this week with Steve Pope, and we've got some more information now, which again, our prime candidate is becoming even more prime. That's what
Well, Alan Wilson said that there was lead.
Yes,
like a
which is coming back down to you're the man we want to go up with next time. Now that you've got the metal detector, because we if we could take, we now believe we've got a good steer as to where it is. There is supposed to be this lead sheet covering it, to provide some water protection. If we can actually locate that lead sheet on one of the candidate sites we got, we can locate that there is lead there. We will then homed in on that site. So
my wife bought me one
next
for
time
Christmas.
Steve and I are up there,
make sure you call round.
Yeah, we want you up there.
Excellent. I better get some training then.
And then this is the time we went up to Monaghan where Ross was singing his wind turbine protest songs. He's doing his Bob Dylan.
My God, I saw that recording. Brilliant.
Yeah, no, again, that was a really good day. Brilliant weather up there, and we all had a good time. And it's not just Ross who was singing. We had other team members up there, so playing songs. But it's always a long walk to Monaghan from where they come up. Whichever way you go, you've got quite a long walk, and this is a steep walk coming up from the west with all of the wind turbines on the horizon.
Yeah.
And you got Tim there doing some
with his dowsing rods.
Yeah, in the pass of the soldier, that is.
What's he asking for? Can you show me a windmill? Find that straight away up there, wouldn't you?
No, they're all in your face now. This is at Llanilled, in the core at Llanilled. Again, we were playing guitars in there. We did a program where we were trying to measure the sound, because we were trying to wonder if they've got this circular core and it's concave in between. Did the speaker stand in the middle, and then because of the concave nature and the sound waves being bounced back, if people stood on the rim of it, would it act as an amplifier, or did the speaker stand on the rim and then using again the concave things like that, people would think would it enhance the sound? So we had we took up my my sound meter. And unfortunately, it was uncalibrated. I had to send it away for calibration. It was uncalibrated. We were getting false readings, so we couldn't come to a conclusion on that day. No. And it's something else that we're going to go out now and test on a more rigorous basis, because we believe that the actual, if you stand in the centre and the people sat on the rim, the sound waves, you would get an amplification effect. It would sound louder than if you were just the same distance away from the person.
It's hard to say with all the trees in there. They're dampeners, aren't they?
Oh, well, they are now, but the trees obviously were not there. I mean, the whole thing is now wooded, but it wouldn't have been. It would have just been a bowl. This is back at Lantony for another visit out there, doing filming. Having lunch.
Essential part of the day.
And then this is another trip. This was January, not this year, last year, 2022. Steve and I were up there again, still looking for Arthur's site and looking for clues. And whenever we go there, we always do a check on the church to see how much more damage, because I've got some more photos which I got in a separate package. We look at where it's rapidly disappearing. The church, you know, it is now rapidly disappearing. Again, this is out on Dinas Island with Stevenage drone. We went back again. This was January 2022. We went back out there because all of the vegetation was low. The bracken had died down and things like that. And we found umpteen more burial mounds than when we went out initially in the summer. In the summer, the bracken is high. You know, it's almost as high as, you know, at one point it was as high as me. We were wading through it, and you can't see anything. When the bracken is lower, and with the drones, we were able to see a lot of what looked like potentially burial mounds. So you know, the drone footage from that trip would make a good program in itself.
Yeah.
Steve out at the
Pilgrim's Cross.
The Helen's Cross out at Nevin. If no one's been there, Nevin is a good place to go if you're going on holiday in West Wales. So you got to go in and look at it, because, you know, that's another good one. And again, for the price of that art installation on Hadrian's Wall, we could have got a company to put in just a small borehole through this wall, perhaps even just take out one of the stones that form the bottom, you know, that form this bottom end. These are all stone. This is all stonework, whereas the top here is natural stone. So it just follows around here. So you've got like a cave which has been filled in very carefully with stonework. One of the stones was taken out by a visiting American and has been put back in. If we take that stone out, we could get a drill bit through and drill through. What the American who took the stone out said, well, you've got the initial stone wall, but behind it there's a gap, and then there's another stone wall. Well, we could have then bored through the next hole and with an endoscope seen what was actually in the cave that's behind this wall.
Yeah.
For the price of that, the art installation up on Hadrian's Wall, it would have cost probably half of that or a quarter of that, because it would be a couple of hours work for people with the right equipment. You know, we could have funded something like that, and that would have actually moved things forward rather than just something pretty to look at.
Yeah, but it'd prove it one way or the other, wouldn't it?
Yes.
So who was that standing on the wall?
On the wall, that's Steve Pope.
He did well to get up that high. That's quite high, isn't it?
That is the actual. That's what all the pilgrims do, because this was on the pilgrim route to St David's, and as everyone passed here, they all stood up on this little ledge to touch the cross.
Right.
Because this bit where he stood is really well polished, where thousands of people over the years have stood on it, and one of the stones is polished where people have put, like Steve, have put their hands on it.
Right. I didn't get that high when I went there.
Right.
Not too short.
So this is Ross and I out at St Henry Common, where we went out. We spent quite a lot of time on the common up there, Eccleston Common, because of the wind turbines.
Yeah.
And I've got a little bit of an update on the wind turbines. We'll do as another feature. But yeah, we're out there, and I'm flying my drone to get some drone footage, and you can see what the St Henry Dyke is this depression here.
Yeah.
Right? But you can see how the common is actually been trashed with agricultural and off-road vehicles and people just going on the common in wet weather. And to the point where, you know, so if you didn't know what you were looking at, and that is the St Henry Dyke, you wouldn't actually recognize it as such. Perhaps, you know, someone was just looking at that as a photo, but they wouldn't recognize that is actually a scheduled monument there. But look at the destruction all around it, and the fact that the vehicles are crossing through it, you know, in various places now, eroding the ditch out.
Yeah, that's not going to last, is it? With these.
Well, the whole thing is, for example, up on this hilltop here, there's going to be 4 massive 220-meter high wind turbines with access tracks to them, being newly formed access tracks going straight across the common. The whole common is going to get trashed when they build it, just to build the access tracks to the turbine locations.
I don't like the way you said when they build it. It sounds as if it's a fait accompli.
Yes, with the Welsh Assembly, it probably is. It's there's a big push on for for wind energy. I can't see why they would refuse it. No one's that interested in the common enough to complain. The small number of people who are interested in the historical side of it, they'll just say that we're not impacting any scheduled monuments. We're not impacting any listed buildings. We're not impacting anything that's known to be of known historical value. But as we know, when we go up there, there's all kinds of stones all over there, which form part of, some of them form part of the zodiacs. And to a guy driving a JCB digger, it's just a stone in the way of my new access track. We'll lock that out of the way and move it. And once it's moved, we'll never know where that stone was. At least if they were going to move it and they recorded that where the location of the stone, we could then still do all of the orientation work and surveying work necessary to see how the zodiac works. But once that stone's taken out, and if that stone is an important piece in the jigsaw, it's lost forever.
Yeah.
Here we are. Yeah, this is last August for Alan Wilson's 90th birthday.
Yeah, very much more positive photograph, isn't it? Lovely family photo.
That was a good day out as well. That was. And then the next day we all went up onto Hadrian's Wall, with the family, and walked along the wall for a couple of miles in each direction. This is out at Can Arian. I forget this gentleman's name now, but this is another one of these burial cairns, which you can't see normally because it's in the middle of a coniferous forest.
Yeah, we'll be again at some point.
They've clear-felled recently, and it's now regenerating or been replanted. And we had to get out there. Ross felt we had to get out there and look at it before the trees grew up again, because we wouldn't be able to see it.
Yeah,
but it's quite an interesting one, and it's a good one to visit if you haven't been there, because it's got this strange hole in the middle of it. Now it has been excavated, and what we don't know at the moment, we're trying to find the excavation reports, is whether that hole was originally there and as part of the original design, it was a hollow surrounded by stones, or whether that is just the actual depression that's been left following they've dug down into the center of the cairn when they did the archaeological excavation. But again, it's one of these ones, if you want to see it, get out and look at it now, because in 3 or 4 years' time, it's going to be surrounded by trees. So it's going to be A, difficult to find, and B, what you won't be able to see if it's got any other connections in the landscape.
Yeah, I want to see this perspective, will you? And where's that exactly then, that one?
Yeah, it's not far from Twyniglow. It's in that area up there. I think it's a bit further north than Twyniglow.
Oh, by Ynysybol then?
Yeah.
Just up by Ynysybol. Oh, I haven't seen that one. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, no, it's another good day out. Then we got this was one of the best 3 days I've ever spent in my life. Out with Robert Langdon and Ross for three days, and we're going out to look at Wansdyke to discuss and question Robert Langdon on his ancient canal theory, because he believes that the Wansdyke, instead of being a defensive ditch dug after the Romans were here, to be a prehistoric canal. So we went out, Ross and I spent 3 days. They stayed at my house, and we went out for 3 consecutive days. But yeah, Robert's a fantastic character. So I disagree with some of his conclusions, but as a guy, I'm just in awe. He's just so good fun. And Ross took 3 days worth of video here, and he was in the process of editing it Sunday before he died. So we haven't at the moment been able to locate the footage. So
probably still on the camera. on that card on the camera.
And he downloaded it, we think, because he was in the
Right.
process of actually editing it on his computer. So, but we
Well,
can't find where he stored
yeah,
it at the moment.
I always have it in two places at least.
Yes, yeah, no,
So
you always got to keep a backup. You can't
yeah,
rely on one. I've lost too many photographs that way. But this is Robert explaining and going through his theory with us and explaining it and how it all works and etc. This is in West Woods, where the actual ones like runs through West Woods. And West Woods is recently, only in the last 2 years, I think it is they discovered that that is the source of the sarsen stones for Stonehenge. They originally thought they were on part of the downs further down, but they've now actually, through analysing the stones themselves. You recall that the person who stole a core. There was a core taken out of the one of the sarsen stones when they did the repair work and re-erected all of the stones in the 1950s.
right.
And they at that point in time they took a stone core out of it, and that stone core got lost or taken by someone, and it was recently found. And then when they analysed it, they actually found that there's a perfect match for the stone in West Woods near Marlborough.
Right.
And then as a result of the interest in West Woods there, this is then a standing stone that's been discovered in the woods.
Yeah.
And again, it's only I'm sure it's been seen by people before, but it's only actually come out in print within the last 10 years, I think it is, that this stone's been found in the woods. So we went to see that.
Yeah, that looks like markings on the top of it, doesn't
yes,
it?
yeah, no, you look there. It's got like it's not. It's this cross here. This arm here isn't long enough for a cross.
No.
It looks more like an axe or something like that. It's also got on this side here where I couldn't get a decent photograph because I couldn't get in. My camera wouldn't focus close enough when I was leaning with my back leaned as hard as I could against this tree. There's also some kind of engravings and stuff down on the flat side of this of the stone. But this is in West Woods, and again, this is where if people want to go out on site visits, this is why it would be useful to go out with people who've already been, because it would take you all day long to find this stone.
Find that stone, yeah.
It's just in the woods, and people have wandered around for hours looking for it. But if you know where it is, it's very, very, very easy to find once you've been there once.
Just like the house we live in. People can't find it the first time. You need to come back twice.
So, and then we were up at one site, so we retired for lunch because Robert always likes lunch and coffee. Where again we went through in detail. We've gone through his books and all of his information and stuff that he's produced.
What did you say this gentleman's name is?
Robert Langdon.
Robert Langdon.
He's been on the show because Ross has done the thing about the one-side canal theory.
Yeah.
And I can see where Robert is coming from in terms of the one side itself is difficult to actually comprehend as a defensive structure. And again, this was what we were going to explain in the program that Ross was putting together. Once we get that, it would make a really, really good video. It probably have to be done over two Sunday shows, because it'd be quite long. And then we're back at my place here, continuing the debate and the argument. And as I said, I had 3 days of absolute merriment because these two would argue about everything. We'd be driving in the car, they'd be arguing about football, then they'd argue about cricket, then they'd argue about economics, then politics, then they'd argue about Robert Langdon's theory, then they argue about that. Yeah, it was just it's just hilarious, fun because they argued, and it was Ross the immovable object meets Robert Langdon the irresistible force kind of thing. Neither of them would give way on their arguments, and I had to remind them several times it was going wrong. Hang on a minute, guys. You're now arguing against both your arguments on the other side yesterday. But it was 3 days of really good fun. We really enjoyed ourselves. So we went to Avebury. on one of the days. So you can see that we're in for a fight here. And Robert then, you know, again, he's got theories on Avebury as the actual henge itself being more, if you like, a harbour rather than a henge as such. We got Ross and Robert here trying to sell a stone to some Americans, which is quite good fun. They even offered the gift wrap when they sent it to America. And then we returned to the pub for lunch again, where the arguments continued again. And this is my best sequence here, where this is in the afternoon in the cafe at Avebury, in the old barn. So we're arguing again, and I can't remember what the argument was about, but obviously, so Ross had really got to, to Robert at this point. This is out at Eccleston Common again. This was Ross had noticed on one of the maps that this ditch here goes all the way around the mountain and just forms a big ring around it.
Yeah,
and it doesn't really act as a drainage ditch, because when you follow it around, it goes up, down, up, down, up, and down. But you've got this. It's almost like the same hanging dike again, but actually around a big plateau area on the common.
well,
and again, we still don't know what date this is from, or what actually
what it's for.
What it's for, because it's not drainage. Because they say at this point it looks like it could be a drainage ditch, you know, draining down. But you go around the corner and it drops down and it goes up, and it drops down and goes up. It's a bit like one side, you know. You can't actually hold water, you know, because it will all flow down and overflow at the low points. So again, it's a feature on there. It seems to be quite an old feature, but what it's for, we don't know. Then this is a character that Ross and I met out on the common, who's been walking the common for 50 years, I think he said.
Wow.
He took us to see a whole range of things on the common that we hadn't picked up on. These stones. And this is an interesting one, because this is actually a scheduled monument.
Wow.
What he's explaining there is that the stones, when he was younger, used to lean against one another. It was formed like a tent.
Yeah.
And now they've all collapsed. And he
How
says
did they collapse?
They've just collapsed and folded down on top of themselves. So it's now just a heap of stones. And he said that happened about 25, 30 years ago. There's again, and I say this is one of the things that happens with Ross. You go back to the previous one, right? Okay, Ross is filming him. You're doing this, and he's giving the explanation and things like that. And then all of a sudden, Ross will notice, oh, my camera battery has run out, or I haven't got the speaker plugged in. Can you do it again? So the guy had to do it again. And that happened frequently. The other thing that you could guarantee with Ross is whenever you were going on a site visit, he would always be late. And the other thing that you guarantee with Ross on the site visit is we'd be going out to look at something specific, you know, going out to Monday and we're going to look at St. Peter's. And on the way there, we would get sidetracked by something, or we would never get to where we were originally going to go. We would get sidetracked onto something else that took his interest.
Well, everything took his interest, didn't it? Let's be fair.
Yeah, this is an interesting part of the stones, which we saw from the far side of the common, and it looked like it was another one of those cairns, you know. So it looked like a prehistoric cairn or a burial chamber or something like that. But when we got there, it's just actually a collection of stones, and the character that we met on the moor told us that they've only been put there. The farmers collected them up from the field and just put them in one location. Why he's decided to put them in this location, we're not certain, but it's not an old feature, you know. It's just that's been done within the last 5 to 7 years.
Oh.
This is Ross out at Llanmono Church.
Yep.
Filming what is believed to be a burial mound.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, so
underneath all that bramble.
underneath all that bramble. And again, we want to go back when all the vegetation had died down, because this was in this was actually days before he actually died. This was within the week he died. We went out there with this lady here, Claire. We went into the woods, and she was going to show us, when she was young, she can remember seeing the stone foundations of buildings and what she took to be burial tombs, burial mounds. Yeah. So we went into the woods to look for them, but the vegetation was just too high. As you can see by the expressions there, so Tim, I don't know what to do. We just couldn't see anything. This is quite a poignant one, because this is the last photograph I ever took of Ross.
Wow.
And we're out on Lancomo. This is 2 or 3 days before he actually died, and it's quite prophetic, because it looks like Tim there is giving him a blessing, but we're all sat on this big rock here, which is on top of a big mound, which this lady Claire believed, she was wondering, is this potentially a burial mound? Because down in the valley here, where we couldn't get to because of the dense vegetation of brambles and briars and things like that, when she used to play here as a child, there seemed to be stone foundations of old buildings or something down in there. And what we wanted to do was just is this a bit established whether what we're sat on top of with this big stone on top, is it a burial mound, and whether the buildings there were, how old were they? Were they medieval, or were they potentially younger?
Is Claire a member of the BHH Facebook group? Or?
I don't think she is, because I think she saw one of the BHH shows and then got in touch with Ross. So I don't actually know whether she met. I've only ever met her once on that one day. And what we were planning to do, what Ross and I and Tim were planning to do, was come back out with her around about now. Now all the vegetation has died back, to see if we can actually find what we were looking for that day.
Yeah.
Site visits then have continued since then. This is January this year. This is out. We went out to Nash Point, but it was blowing a gale and then pouring down with rain. So we headed for the nice warm Plough and Harrow pub.
Another Plough and Harrow.
Yeah. Well, we didn't waste our time. Instead of walking out and getting wet in the rain, we sat down and we had a good discussion about various hidden history topics. So John it was a very productive meeting for me, because what came out of it, I hadn't known that John has produced a great big huge family tree covering from like the birth of Jesus all the way through, covering Arthur, all the kings of Wales and things like that, going down through the ages. Wow. And he's got this great big huge, stretches forever family tree. And it was of great interest to me, because I had myself tried to do flow mapping of the various personalities involved in it, trying to overlay them on top of one another to establish who was alive at the same time. For example, you've got Mairig, Arthur's family, so he was obviously alive at the same time as Arthur. And then if Arthur was alive, where does St. Dubricius? Was he alive? Yeah, he was. We know he was alive, or referred to in the same Arthur period. So he was in that. And then when you start checking out those dates with what the mainstream give for each of these people, you find that it doesn't work. There's misstories.
But like the Egyptian history, then.
Yeah, exactly. And I was trying then to resolve all of that by looking at the dates, using wherever I can Wilson and Blackett dates. But what I was running out of very fast was, you start looking at mainstream dates, and for the same personality or the same person, you get far wide-ranging dates. So some books are like 100 years earlier, some books 100 years later, some books give them slightly longer, slightly shorter. There are no fixed birth dates for a lot of people in this so-called Dark Age period. Yeah. So it's very difficult to get a precise flow mapping that I want to do. I want to overlay them all, just to ensure that everyone who's supposed to be alive at the same time was alive at the same time. And I ended up giving up on it because I couldn't get reliable dating information. with John's, he's done this fantastic sort of family tree, and he's taken it just the other way, we're just reading the manuscripts, and when they refer to a son or a daughter, just sticking it in the thing there. That's going to make it now a lot easier for me to do this flow mapping to overlay the characters.
So what's John's name?
John Pitcher.
Pitcher. And who's the other gentleman?
Rob Pearson.
Which one is which? John in
Rob,
blue.
Rob is on the left hand side. John's on the right. But yeah, we're in the pub, and I said, yeah, we didn't waste our time. We're not just there drinking and eating. We were actually doing, some real historical work and looking at things, as you can see by the concentration on their faces. This is January. This is basically this week, Tuesday this week, where this is Steve Pope, and we're out on Eglwyswyn Common again. And what John's photographing is, what Steve's photographing is this stone here, where you would see the Arwen sign on it.
Yeah.
It's actually an Ordnance Survey level marker. It's actually shown on the old Ordnance Survey maps. So that point is they've taken a level there, so you've got precise level or height for the hill at that point.
But so that again, isn't an Arwen sign then, is it?
No.
It's just an arrow.
When Ross and I first stumbled on it, because it was half buried, we uncovered it. So it's now uncovered again. When we uncovered it, we thought we had discovered the stone with an Arwen on it, because we took all the moss on it that had grown over it. But no, it's actually an Ordnance Survey. When you look at the map, it's quite clear an Ordnance Survey height marker. But anyway, that's Steve taking a. Now he's out with our drones, and what we're got the drones up on. You can't see it really here because there is one of these old cairns again. They're not very high, but the big circular cairns. But these are only about half a meter high at the moment. How big they were originally, we don't know. But it's just essentially a big collection of stones in a rough circle now. And this kind of thing again is that is a scheduled monument. But this is again where they're bringing in huge big trucks now along this access track here, to bring in the turbines. It's so close to this that I'm sure that it's going to get some kind of damage to it as they bring in the trucks. If one truck's got past another or whatever, there's the big potential for it to get damaged. This is Steve again now walking up the long trudge up to the top of Mynyddig again, because we were there on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And here's some of the damage.
That's new, doesn't it?
You can see all the stones holding out. There's a lot of stones which are lighter in colour, which indicates that they've fallen out fairly recently.
Yeah.
So that's a real worry, because it is now rapidly deteriorating.
Yeah, I can see.
This is up on top of Mynyddig Millweir, again on Mynyddig. We're looking for the old monument there, but we couldn't find any trace of that.
I didn't see it when I was up there. Yeah.
No, but again, I've got some further photographs in another thing that we'll look at, showing you the damage that's been done by tractors and agricultural vehicles up on the top there. On the right is Steve. We're climbing Llanbeithion Hill Fort outside of Cowbridge. This is the footpath up there, and this is it's an interesting one. It'd be the subject of another presentation, because it's next to Cowbridge. There's a hill fort. You can see from Google Earth photographs and LiDAR that there's a huge settlement on the top of this hill fort. But what's interesting is there's quite a few links here. The hill fort itself is on top of the hill, and the hill is called by the locals Mount Ida, IDA. And Mount Ida is the mountain in Turkey where the gods sat when they watched the siege of Troy. It's in Turkey. I've actually climbed up to the top of it. So there's a link there with the Trojan migrations. And then there's an isolated church not far from this hill fort, which is dedicated to St. Brynach, there are only 5 churches dedicated to St Brynach in Wales. 4 of them are in Pembrokeshire, one at Nevern, one on Dinas Island, another one at Henry's Moat, and another one, I think, a place called Pencoed, I think it is.
Yeah.
And then you've got this one, which is in by Cowbridge. There's got to be some kind of explanation for that oddity.
Yeah.
It's a real outlier. Why is St Brynach? Why is the church dedicated to him? And the church is interesting to go to because it's got an old circular. It's an old circular site, so it's a very old churchyard, old circular site with. I think the current church dates from the 700s, 800s. So again, it's an old church, but it's always been isolated and not near any settlement. So there's some questions to be answered there. And then we finished our day out by going to Caerwent to look at the Roman walls there, which again, this is where the Silures were then supposed to have been. The Romans are supposed to have, according to some of the versions, supposed to have built this for the Silurians and let them have it and put them all there to provide them with a nice place to live. But who actually built it? Was it really the Romans? Did the Silures go there and occupy it? There's a lot of question marks, I think, on that one.
Yeah, Richard Davis said that it got its name from stone people, so maybe they built it in advance. It was theirs.
Well, I think from the work that they've done, it's from the Roman era, and it's always seen as that the site it wasn't occupied by the Romans themselves, because the Romans themselves were based at Caerleon, not that far away.
Yeah.
So the military, if you like, the military arm of the Romans was certainly in Caerleon. Now, whether the Caerwent was occupied by the non-military Romans, or more likely the Silurians, native population were housed there.
Yeah. Did you see that interview I did with Gareth Jones? Because he reckoned he found evidence that there was a Christian home church at Caerwent in the Roman ruins.
Yeah, well, there is a temple there, and one of the other theories is it's a square temple building with an apse on the end. And one of the theories I was discussing with Steve, I forget the writer's name now. He's come up with a theory that it's actually a padlock, and the key, the Llanmelin Hill fort, is a representation of the key that goes into the padlock. Something else to look at, because that's one of the things that we didn't get round to. This was only yesterday. We spent too long at Caerwent. We were hoping to get up to see Llanmelin Hill Fort and check that one out, but we didn't have enough time yesterday because both of us had to get home.
Yeah.
So that's basically a quick overview of some of the site visits that Britain's Hidden History has done over the last sort of 3-4 years. And if anyone's interested in doing site visits, there's always people like myself, or I'm sure Steve Pope or Tim or Rob, are always, and John Pitcher would certainly be glad to take people and show them Mynydd Baden. And Mynydd Baden is another one of those sites where it would be best to go with somebody who knows the site, because that is spread out over so huge an area. You could spend a whole week wandering around there and miss some of the key things that you should be looking for, because it's such a big area. And so if people actually want to go there, all they got to do is contact us, and we can arrange a date and go up there, and we do, if you like, a guided tour of what we know about. And then hopefully the person who was going up there has got an interest and wants to go up there for a reason, they might be able to bring something and put on the table as well. Another piece of the jigsaw that we can start.
Yeah. Well, Keith Price has done a great deal of work on the campaign, as he calls it, that started with the battles of Mynydd Baden.
Yeah.
And when you look at what I had the other day from the Rhondda Taff Council, their Altered Images project, they've got a whole load of monuments and things like cairns listed in RCT, and there's a whole mass of them up by Hirwaun, which would be the route that they would have taken from Caira over Hirwaun and down then to Pontypridd. And in that area that he's saying there's a load of burial mounds, they're all listed on the RCT website.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah, well, Monday it's I mean, there's been a few battles up there, and part of the problem anyone new to it would have is just teasing out which battle does this feature relate to? Yeah, is this trench here part of the original Arthur battle, or is it one of the later ones?
right.
And again, John Pitcher's done a lot of work on that. So we got people in the group who are willing to take people out and show these things and explain them. And the more that we do that, the more the knowledge gets out there, and the less likely it's going to be lost in future.
Yeah.
It's taken some of this. I know it's taken John Pitcher a long time to piece together the information that he's got. If you started today from scratch doing it, it could take you 10 years. And the problem we're finding day in, day out is lots of bits of the information are quickly disappearing through development.
Yeah.
Farmers are doing things, they're building new farm tracks and trashing through some burial mounds, or sites are disappearing under concrete, housing developments and things like this. And you can envisage a period, if someone was coming out in 50 years' time trying to do what we're doing today, they wouldn't be able to do it because all of the features are no longer there in place. You are actually going to have to rely on people like us providing accurate records for them in the future, so that they know what was there, and so that they can then piece it together. Because it could be in 50 years' time they got sophisticated new archaeological techniques, and the piece of the jigsaw puzzle that's been eluding us in our lifetime is probably, new techniques could enable it to be found. The problem they got then is we've got this wonderful bit of jigsaw, and the old bit of the jigsaw puzzle now is gone. We don't know how to fit it in.
Yeah.
And that's why Ross and I kept discussing. We're forming this jigsaw puzzle, and we've got to record it, and we've got to keep that jigsaw in place and hand it down to the next generations.
Yeah. So where is the place where all the answers are kept then?
Well, that's where Ross has gone to now.
Is that Dinnis Head, or is that Minothigair?
No, that's Minothigair. That's the day he was up there playing his doing his Bob Dylan. But it's like it's how I like to think what's happened to Ross. He's died, but I actually like to think that he is now in the place where all the answers to every question he had is now, the information has now been given to him. Because we've spent so much time, and every time we go out on a site visit, we would always come back with more answers, more questions than
questions to ask.
Yeah, we might find one. We might actually find the answer to what we were looking for, but we would come back we'd all throw up 4 or 5 more.
Yeah.
And I like to think now that Ross has gone and passed away, that he's actually now in that place where all the answers may come to you.
Sure,
you ask a question and they go, and for me it'd be great. Who killed JFK? Give me the answer, because I've been following that one for since I was a young lad, 50 years now. And I still haven't got the answer to it. No. I would like to die knowing the answer, but I can see it's not going to happen.
Well, that's a beautiful photograph, the pair of them, especially the one on the left.
No, I've got thousands of photographs taken on these site visits of different people, and Ross doing this thing. And again, it's great memories for me. The time I spent with him, I haven't known him that long, only about 4 or 5 years. But in that time, we formed a good friendship, and we had so many good days out. And what I'm missing now is, because he'll just ring me up, oh, it's a nice day, should we go somewhere? All right, we'll meet you out on site and we go somewhere. It was great, happy days.
Yeah,
happy days.
Beautiful. Thanks very much, Bob. Thanks,
okay,
particularly for sharing your personal memories there of your time with Ross and all these other people.
Yeah, no, we can't forget him, because he done a tremendous job, and the issues we're facing now are only because he did such a good job. It's taking 4 or 5 people now to do what he was
doing on his own. That's right.
Yeah, and we still can't do it at the moment.
I know.
Even 5, 6, 10 people, we still can't do what he was doing. We've still got to get the act together but we'll never replace him. That's the problem.
No, he's irreplaceable.
He was the center of the universe. People would were coming in, giving them stories, asking questions, and the bigger thing he's that source of knowledge. Because if I was say I was looking at something, I'm interested in this Roman road here. Do you know anything about that? He would always know somebody who got that information or was interested in it, or would know somebody who knows somebody.
Yeah.
So he would then direct you through. You'd ask Ross, and he'd put you out to someone else. And that's what we've lost, is that central hub that everything revolves
around. That's right. Thank you very much for your time, Bob. This is
Okay.
going to make. I know we'd all like to thank Bob for his work on our hidden history, and there'll be more from Bob very shortly in the near future. And of course, you can buy all the books mentioned by Bob and others from Cymroglyphics, which is www.cymroglyphics. You might even be able to buy some of the large stones as well that we've got in Wales. We've got too many. We don't need them all. This is the one book there that Bob was talking a great deal about, where Jesus is buried. So the manuscript was written maybe in the 1980s. It took 40 years to publish this book, primarily because Alan Wilson didn't really want to upset any of his Christian friends. But 40 years later, history has moved on, hasn't it? And he thought, well, yes, now it is the time to publish this book. And when you look in the book, the original manuscript is added to with an epilogue there by Ross himself. And as we mentioned in the video, there are appendices of work and reports, site reports. There's one there by Bob Morgan. So Bob and Ross added to Allen and Barham's book, and it can be obtained, as we said, from Cymroglyphics. I managed to get my copy, and Ross laughingly said, "Oh, look, this one's been signed by Allen and Barham." So I said, "Well, and you?" "No." So I insisted that he signed it, and I'm very glad that I did insist on that, as Jesus Jones in the chat has found out. Very unfortunate that Ross is no longer with us. So he's finding out the answers as Bob described. Right, let's take a look then at the live chat. We had early on, we had Liam Pendragon asking if Britain's Hidden History would allow sharing of the videos. I don't think we would, because they're monetized, and we can share the link every time to what is on the channel. But basically, we're asking people to join the channel and pay a monthly fee if you possibly can, because that way then the monthly fee goes towards furtherance of field visits, technology and the history, and publishing the books. There's a lot of need for people to be members of the YouTube channel. You get more if you're a member as well than ordinary attendance of the channel. Nimble Horse mentioned that it was £30,000 or more for the artwork that was erected as a Roman fort on Hadrian's Wall. So David, Scarab City and Monica, also Meg W and Gary Taylor, all commented how wonderful the photos were. Well done, Bob. They truly are stunning photographs. Some of those photographs of people in particular, really top-notch photography. Thank you, Bob. And thanks to everybody who said how nice they were. Kay Higgs called Ross Indiana Broadstock. You can see why. That hat didn't half take a beating. You look at some of the photos, there's not much leather on one side of it. So Deb, ex-Space Cadet over in Australia, is very happy that we are continuing the work. Well, how could you not? Let's be fair. Ross did so much work promoting the work of Alan Wilson and Barham Blackett. And without them, I think this history may well have fallen off the cliff edge that Ross always used to quote, that Alan Wilson and Barham Blackett raised the hidden history from the bottom of the cliff up to the edge of the cliff, and it was hanging in there by its fingertips, and hopefully now we're all pulling it up onto safe ground. So Andrew Whelan told us a great joke and also shared memory of a field visit with Ross at the Lion's Stone with David Icke's son before the farmer took umbrage. And Andrew also mentioned the Plough and Harrow. I got my own memories of the Plough and Harrow. We had a works do there when I was very young, and the bus was out of Sharabank days, very ancient bus. We all took the visit down there in the lunchtime and spent the afternoon there. And I've never seen so many people, 52-seater that bus, never seen so many people so drunk at one time. They used to sell their beer directly from the barrel. And they had very small rooms at the time. And the one public bar area was black and white tiles on the floor, counter, and these barrels behind it. Real beer. Great days. And Andrew mentions the food. When I got home on that visit, I can remember that there was 4 people. We had a bowl of stew. And I noticed there were crunchy bits in the stew. I looked at the plates, and there were trays we were eating off our laps. We had empty bowls at the end of the meal, and the other 3 people had a little pile of bones. You guessed it, no bones on my tray. I noticed there were crunchy bits, as I said. Any other live chat? Richard DJ talked about Sutton Hoo, and Liam Pendragon mentioned about the Red Sea being the sea that the Cymry crossed, and not the Red Sea itself. So Derek, Moses' video stopped. My iPad didn't, Derek, so I'm hoping that that was a blip at your end and not for the rest of us. Well, thank you very much for joining us this evening, today, and I hope you enjoyed our time together. I certainly enjoyed facilitating. Thank you to Angela and the boys, who after still more trial and error, I had to visit them today to sort me out. My computer just didn't play games today in the live chat. Let's play Arnie's video again. Well done, Arnie. Very talented young man. Only 14. But I'd like to say now that tradition has it that the chat is left open a little while at the end of the show. So to make room for another couple of minutes of chat, I'll play some local talent from YouTube. Local to Rhondda Cynon Taf, that is. It's a local musician by the name of Stephen J. Preston. Probably his father, Norman Preston, taught Ross at Bryn Celynnog Comprehensive School, because Ross was there at the time when I think Norman Preston was still there, taught physics and chemistry. And this is his son, Stephen. He's given me permission to use his music videos. You can find his music on YouTube under the name Stephen, spelled Stephen J. Preston.
Walked across the harbour bridge, sunshine glimmering on Chesapeake Bay. I watched the old money sophisticates with piloted yachts and 10 a.m. champagne. Sat for a while to stare at bronze that tells me this is the landing place of Kunta Kinte. And it's hard to imagine that this pretty town was once a market for slaves. I seek refuge down at Chicken Roots. I need breakfast and to get out of the heat. It's a down-home place where every day they say the pledge and politicians like to meet. Served crab and eggs by a smiling waitress. She called me honey, I think her name was Jane. And it seemed to me that in her life she may have seen more than her share of pain. And I thought, ooh, you've made a place for yourself, my friend. You can't change the stars, but you decide the end. And I thought, ooh, you've made a place for yourself, my friend. You can't change the stars, but you decide the end. Drove from Rushmore down to Pine Ridge and on to Wounded Knee. From the symbols of the great past, shanty towns and resentful eyes that stared at me. And when I found the place, I met a brave Sioux who looked like he hadn't seen a dentist in a while. And for $20 he sold me stories of his past with a weary practiced smile. And he told me about his niece who moved to New York to get a law degree. How a daughter speaks the language of the tribe to keep alive their history. And I walked up the dusty path to the sacred site of all his misery. And it seemed to me that all the time in the universe might not be enough for him and me. For yourself, my friend, you can't change the stars, but you decide the end. And I thought, ooh, you made a place for yourself, my friend. You can't change the stars, but you decide the end. South Georgia cotton fields hung low. It's been a wet one and the harvest didn't clear. And he's working round the clock just to survive for another year. He's a dying breed, he farms the land that his daddy did before. But competing with the giants makes him wonder if it's worth it anymore. But every day he gets up and puts his all into the work that must be done. And every night he loves the simple things of life with his wife and son. And he don't give much away, your one word answer is often all I get. seems to me this quiet gentleman won't quit the fight just yet. And I thought, you've made a place for yourself, my friend. You can change the start, but you decide the end. Yes, I thought, you've made a place for yourself, my friend. You can change the start, but you decide the end. You can change the start, but you decide the end. No, you can't change the start, but you decide the end. You decide the end. You decide the end. You decide the end.
One final point. The video of Ross singing the protest song about the windmills is on Britain's Hidden History YouTube channel. Check it out. He's a great singer and it's a lovely song. Thank you very much for joining, and I bid you farewell.